Hi, my name's John Kelsey. I'm National Trainer for Hard Hat Industry Solutions. This is a session from Red Rhino Academy, our complete training course in electrical and structured cabling estimating using Red Rhino software. Welcome to our session, Structured Cabling Estimating Part 1, Horizontal Station and Closet Build-Out. This session is part 1 of a 3-part training session developed specifically for our customers that estimate and install structured cabling projects. These are my assumptions as we begin this training session. Number 1, I assume you know how to log on to Red Rhino, how to create an estimate, and how to create sections. Number 2, I also assume that you have a clear understanding of how to do a material takeoff for structured cabling. And if you have not watched our session titled Setting Up Red Rhino, please watch that session first. This session is more advanced and builds upon this previous session. This session covers where to find material takeoff forms for structured cabling in Red Rhino and how to enter materials for structured cabling projects using Red Rhino's assemblies for horizontal station and closet build-outs. We start from our home page and begin by taking a look at the material takeoff forms that Red Rhino provides specifically for structured cabling. Forms are available from the home page. In order to print out the structured cabling forms, at the bottom right of the page, click on the Material Takeoff Forms box. The accordion menu opens and displays the forms available. Under the category Structured Cabling Takeoff Forms, notice the list which includes horizontal station assembly, closet build-outs, indoor backbone riser, and outdoor backbone, or OSB for outside plant. Selecting any of those will allow you to view them and print them. Simply click on the form and use your print options to print the form. Now let's take a brief look at the blank horizontal material takeoff page. Like all other Red Rhino forms, this one includes lines in the header to fill in information about the project, such as name, date, and other project identifying details. The lower portion is designed for you to fill in how many horizontal assemblies you want to include in your project. Each form contains a second page where you can include miscellaneous materials you need for the project. Since we began by assuming you know how to do a takeoff, we will move to a look at the horizontal assembly material takeoff form and see what it would look like filled in and use that information for today's session. The form on the left is a view of page 1 of the horizontal assembly material takeoff form. Page 2 of the form is on the right. Red Rhino has assemblies listed in the same order as listed on the horizontal station takeoff form. At the top of the list are the 4-pair cable complements 1 through 6 cable stations. You'll notice there are 5 of the 4-pair cable complements included and 5 of the 4-pair cable complements included. I know I'm being redundant, but Red Rhino has assemblies for each of the items listed on the material takeoff forms. This takeoff form and Red Rhino use the same names for the assemblies and are listed in the same order so you can enter them quickly and efficiently into the system. Next are Coax cable stations 1 through 4. You'll notice that there is a quantity of 1 of the Coax cable assemblies included. Below that are the mixed complements showing different quantities and combinations of copper with Coax cables. There's a quantity of 3 of the 2 4-pair and 1 Coax, and there's a quantity of the 2 3-pair, or let me say it again, 2 of the 3 4-pair with 1 Coax. At the bottom are mixed cable complements which include combinations of copper, coax, and fiber cables. Next I'll describe page 2 of the horizontal assembly material takeoff form. Page 2 of the Takeoff form has miscellaneous items. At the top of the list, you see there were 150 ceiling supports added. Below that are dressing materials and so on. Again, Red Rhino has assemblies for each of these categories. With completed Takeoff forms as shown here, we're ready to enter this information into Red Rhino. We will not be looking at this Takeoff form again, but please keep in mind that as we move on to showing you the assemblies in Red Rhino, we'll be working with the same assembly names you see on these forms. Now we move back to our home page to enter our structured cabling materials for this Takeoff into Red Rhino and show you how to use our assemblies. From the home page, the accordion menu should have Estimate and Proposal menu open by default. I click List Estimates and Rhino will display the estimates you've already created. Again, if you've not watched the session called Setting Up Red Rhino, you should watch that session first. It shows how to create an estimate and how to create sections. I click on the estimate named Structured Cabling. The estimate's top portion displays information about your estimate, including estimate name and description. The bottom portion of the page is named Sections. Moving forward, I'll demonstrate how to input materials using assemblies in each section. I want to point out that you do not have to create multiple sections. It is a matter of preference how you set up sections or break out prices. You could create only one section and enter all materials into that section, but having separate sections on larger projects or jobs is an advantage to track larger quantities of materials and labor. Typically, there are 5 main installation categories in structured cabling jobs. I have created 5 sections in this same, or rather sample estimate using these categories. The section names and categories are as follows. Section A is horizontal station. Section B is closet. Section C is indoor backbone. Section D is OSP or outside plant. Section E is miscellaneous. I'll describe each of them, but only sections A and B and E will be covered during this session. We'll come back to the section C and D in a later training session. Now, section A, I added a description. It includes everything from the faceplate to the closet. So basically, it covers worker outlet stations where people sit and plug in computers and phones. Next is section B, closet. Closet includes structures, racking, wall fields, termination hardware, and patch cords. Structures cover your racks, cabinets, and wall swing cabinets. Racks may be 2-post or 4-post on a raised floor or concrete floor. Overhead racking can include wire baskets or standard Telco ladder racks. Wall field covers from the plywood backboard to the wall field termination hardware. Last, your closet will have patch cords and cross connects. So anything you would use to finish the terminations of your horizontal cable plant that connect to the active smart components are included here. Next is section C, called indoor backbone or intra-level backbone. These are materials that go from one closet to another closet or from one floor to another floor inside a building. They may be either plenum rated or non-plenum rated in some sort of path structure. It includes your various multi-strand cables, multi-pair coppers, and some riser-rated interducts, and certain coax cables. Section D is outdoor backbone or your inter-level backbone. This may also be referred to as outside plant. This will be covered in greater detail in our video on structured cabling part 2. Last as a section is miscellaneous. It includes materials and components that would not fall under previous 4 sections. An example would be items such as fire stopping materials, dressing materials, pulling supplies, and miscellaneous labeling. Also included might be additional labor costs for documentation, for closeouts, etc. When I estimate larger structured cabling projects, I create estimates with section names as shown here. This 5-section format gives you a breakdown that will help you to evaluate costs in the estimate for each installation. I'll explain the cost breakdown in greater detail in our structured cabling video part 3. We begin the demonstration how to use the product catalog, and then we will follow up with assemblies. I start by clicking Edit Takeoff in the horizontal section. Rhino takes us to a Material Takeoff input page. This is where we begin entering materials. At the top left, under the Wizards button, is a product catalog displaying several categories: 4,000, 7,000, 8,000, and 9,000. Categories 7,000, 8,000, and 9,000 are for electrical estimating. They won't be covered today. But I click on the plus sign to the left of 4,000 that says Structured Cabling Projects or Products Labor Only. Rhino displays a product catalog. From the top you see cable, patch cords, panels, connectors, and so on. I click on the plus sign to the left of cable, and Rhino displays a subcategory list, and it lists cable, copper multi-pair, coax, fiber, interduct, pulling supplies, dressing, etc. Just click on the item you want to add materials. Next I click on copper multi-pair, and at the bottom left Rhino displays a list of materials: 4-pair, 25-pair cable, 50-pair cable, etc. Clear up to 1,200-pair cable. From here we type in the quantity of cable required, and the corresponding materials will populate to the right of the page. You basically drill down in the menu, find the item you want to include in your estimate, type in the quantity, and click the Add button. For example, I'm going to type in 1,500 feet of 4-pair cable. Then I'll click the Add button. When I click the Add button, Rhino will add the materials on the top right of the page. Once you click the Add button, the materials appear on the right. You click the Save button. Now notice at the top right, below the buttons, is a header that includes description, UPC, manufacturer, catalog number, quantity or QTY for quantity, unit price, unit of measure, extended price, labor hours, labor UOM, extended labor, and cost code. In this case, the description is 4-pair cable. Since Red Rhino has generic materials, the UPS is listed or references Rhino UPC numbers, not a real one. To the right, it shows a quantity of 1,500 feet, the amount I entered. Farther to the right, it displays the labor hours for installing cable, which is 4.4 hours per 1,000. Notice that below the unit price there's a 0. Rhino does not include pricing for structured cabling materials because materials should always be quoted from your material vendors. In video Structured Cabling Part 3, I will demonstrate how to input quoted materials at the recap. Quick word about unit of measure. UOM stands for unit of measure. Red Rhino has 3 different units of measure. They are E for each, C for 100. Let me get there first. There you go, unit of measure. E for each, C for 100, and M for 1,000. In this example, the labor set up for Red Rhino to install 4-pair cable is 4.4 hours per 1,000 feet of cable. Since there are 1,500 feet input, Red Rhino displays the extended labor at 6.6 hours. In other words, since there were 1,500 feet of cable input, Red Rhino set up for 4.4 hours per 1,000, then Red Rhino displays 6.6 hours to install 1,500 feet. Each time materials are entered, they display in this format. Later I'll show a summary report that shows all labor in the estimate. Again, when using the product catalog, you drill down in the product catalog, locate the materials, and then input the quantity, click Add, and then finally save your work. At this point, after you input the materials and before you click the Save button to save your work, you could edit anything in the open boxes. For instance, if I wanted to change the labor hours for cable, I just click in the box under labor hours and change the labor to what I want. In this example, I'm going to change the labor hours to an even 4 hours per thousand. Then you click Save to save your work. Now I will show you a much faster way to input materials using assemblies. I click the drop down to the left of the Wizards button and select Assemblies. Here we have pre-populated assemblies that have most of the items in them that you need to do the estimates. Red Rhino will display a list of assemblies below. The categories are horizontal stations, closet build-outs, indoor backbone riser, outdoor backbone outside plant, and miscellaneous items. Next, I click 50.1 or 50.01 horizontal stations, and Red Rhino displays various horizontal assemblies. There, I'll click on horizontal. It presents the horizontal assemblies at the bottom. At the top of the list are the 4-pair cable complements 1 through 6 cable stations. Next are the Coax cable stations 1 through 4. At the bottom are the mixed cable complements. Now it's time to input the assemblies. I'll scroll up to the top of the list here. Now our estimate requires several 1, 2, and 3 cable stations. You just type in the quantities in the quantity box. And let's see, there's 5 wall phones, which are 1 4-pair cable, 45 2-cable stations, which are very common. Also required are 5 3-cable stations for copier, printer, fax stations. All you do is type in the quantities and click Add, and it extends over to the right. Right here it gives you all the components. You have the 4-pair cable, the cable faceplates, jacks, the terminations, and cable labels. It's all right here. Notice that the closet side termination racks are not included here. Whether it's on a wall field or in a rack, whether it's a 24-port or 48-port patch panel, closet side terminations will be included in the closet section. If you calculate that your average cable station length is different, you simply calculate how many feet the total should be and retype the total quantity and then save your work. You can make changes very quickly. Let's say that you think your total cable length should be 600 feet. Just edit the 750 to 600 and move on to the next item. I'm going to make the total cable length again 600 feet. If I wanted to edit any of the quantities or any of the labor for any items, I would edit them now before I click Save. Assemblies make your input a very fast process. I basically typed in 3 numbers and input a large list of materials for multiple cable stations. I'll click Save to save my work. Next, I'll demonstrate or explain closet assemblies. I'm going to click the back button and go back to the closet section. Click Edit Takeoff. In the closet section, same drill here. I click the drop down to select assemblies. I select Structured Cabling Systems. Click on Closet Build-Outs. Rhino has several assemblies for closet build-out. They're displayed in the same order as listed in the material takeoff form. There are many assemblies for floor racks from 1 to 5 rack assemblies. There are assemblies from 1 to 5 different post racks. Here's your post racks. There's assemblies for multiple cabinets. 1, 2, 3, 4 cabinets. Assemblies for standard telco racks, wall racks, plywood racks, and ladder racking. Assemblies for wire baskets and fire stopping. I will not demonstrate each of those. What I highly recommend is you try them out yourself so you know what components are in each assemblies. Now back to my input. In this estimate example, we have 2 different closets. One closet has 2 racks in it. The other one has 3 racks in it. I'll type those quantities in. Here's my 2 rack. There's the 3 rack. Include my plywood backboards there. Put in the ladder racking. Wire baskets and fire stopping. Then I scroll back up to the top, click the Add button, and the materials populate to the right. Now notice I input 5 or 6 numbers, and Rhino input a whole list of components included in the assemblies. After you become familiar with the assemblies and have done this a couple times, you'll fly through the process. Each time you input an assembly, Rhino displays the name of that assembly, and below the name of the assembly is the list of components included. In this example, the description displays a reference number of the assembly and then the description of the 2 floor racks. Some of the items may have a quantity included, and some may show 0 quantities. The items with 0 quantities are just reminders for you to include them if they're needed for a particular estimate. When items are not needed, you may leave them at the quantity 0. Later I'm going to show you how to delete them. I recommend you delete the quantities to 0. Below the name of the assembly is the first few items is a standard rack, 19 inch by 7 feet, base anchor kit, and base isolation kit. There's a standard rack. Notice the standard rack and the base anchor kit both have a quantity of 2. Base isolation kit, say it again, base isolation kit has a quantity of 0. In this example, I'm going to input 2 base isolation kits to avoid static because I do not have a raised environment. I'm going to throw in a couple of shelves also here. I do not need any PDU racks at this time. It covers my vertical wire managers, gives me 2 6-inch vertical managers on one on each end, and a 10-inch on the other end. There, I'll put my shelves in, 2 shelves I'll add. Again, this list is just to jar your memory on items that you might need for these assemblies. You can either fill in the quantities or leave them at 0. There, I'll put in 6 of the horizontal wire managers. I scroll down, here's my 3 rack row. Again, it gives me all my parts for the racks. I continue adding those as moving along. It gives me reminders of all the things I do not want to forget. Again, I need my base isolation kit, so I'm going to go ahead and add these as I move along. I'll say that only 2 racks need a shelf, so I'll add those. Let's say one of the racks needs a PDU, so I'll input one of those. Here's my 6-inch and 10-inch vertical wire managers. I'm going to type in one 1-unit horizontal, one 3-unit horizontal wire manager. Next I scroll down to Telco Racks. After staring at this for a few seconds, I realize there are no Telco Racks. Looks like I forgot to add the Telco Racks, but I can do that very quickly. There you go, there's the Telco Racks. Again, one base isolation kit I'll input here. One rack PDU. Same drill. Just go down the list here, include the items that you need here. Next we'll move on to our plywood backboard. I'll input 2 plywood backboards. So I'm good to go. Next is ladder racking. I move on or scroll down to my ladder rack assembly. Red Rhino included 12-inch ladder racks. I'm going to say that 18 inches needed, so I click into the box, zero the 12-inch quantities, and add back the 18-inch quantities for each of the related items. You can make these changes very quickly. Zero out the quantities I don't need, add the quantities back that I do. Just keep moving down the page, changing the quantities, adding items as I see needed. Next, I'm going to double the quantity of ladder threaded rod sealing kits to 8. Last item there is grounding kits. I'm going to double the quantity there to 8. Next is wire basket. Assembly included 2-inch. If you wanted to change it to 4-inch, you could do it there. The wire basket assembly also shows the underfloor support bracket as a reminder. If you need them, you would add them here. Next is fire stopping. I just put a quantity of 1. It lists putty tube, mineral wool, cable tray, pillow, easy path, and allowance for 1 sleeve. In this example, I'm going to say I know I have 12 sleeves. I'll zero the quantities for putty tube and mineral wool because they will not be needed. Next, I click Save to save my work. Next, I want to demonstrate some editing functions. Once all the material input is completed in the section, I recommend you go through and delete each line of material that has a 0 quantity. Later, you'll want to create a material list, and the materials with 0 quantities would show up on those material lists unless you delete them. You can delete one line at a time just by clicking on the line and clicking the delete button, then click Save. Always make sure you save your deletion. Now here's how to delete multiple lines simultaneously. The fastest way to delete lines from this page on your keyboard is to hold down the Control button and left click on each item or material line that you want to delete. When you do this, it highlights each line you clicked on in gray. Again, always click the Save button after you click the Delete button. Again, hold down the Control button, click on the line you want to delete, click the Delete button, and click Save. Once you've saved the materials that were input, you can edit any line of material. Let's say I want to edit line 2. I just click on the line, click the Edit button, change anything in the open dialog boxes there, and click Save. Always save your work. Next, I want to explain how to add labor using the Add Labor button at the top right. I'm going to say I want to add 8 hours for housekeeping or cleanup of the construction area. If you want to add labor only for something, just click the Add Labor button at the top right. It opens up a dialog box that you can type in. And type in the description on the far left there. Type in the description of the labor that you're adding. In this case, I'm going to type in labor for cleanup. Now to the right, I put in the quantity of 1. And then to the right of that, I'll type in the quantity of hours that I want to add, in this case 8. Next, click the Save button to save your work. I just added 8 hours of labor there to the estimate. Scroll down, there it is. Added 8 hours. Next, I want to explain how to unsquinch. The view of the Material Takeoff input page, I jokingly refer to it as squinching and unsquinching. On the Material Takeoff page, to get a better view, you can simply move the line over either way or the other, depending on the view you want. Just click, put your cursor on the dark black line, left click, hold it down, move it over. Hold it down, you can move it over one way or the other. Again, I jokingly refer to this as unsquinching. Gives you a better view. Now I'll demonstrate how to delete material items on the Rhino Takeoff page. To remove a product from the material list, just click on the product you want to remove. I'll just use this as an example. Click Delete. Click Save. There you go. You can delete anything on the page using the Delete button there just by highlighting it first. And again, same thing, to delete multiples, hold down the Control button, or click Delete, click Save. To summarize what was learned in this session, we covered that there are 5 main categories of estimating structured cabling: horizontal, closet, indoor backbone, and outside plant. We covered that Red Rhino has material takeoff forms for each category, and these takeoff forms correspond to the assemblies available in Red Rhino to speed up selecting and entering data. And finally, we covered how to enter materials in Red Rhino using the structured cabling assemblies. With this, we conclude this training session on Red Rhino. This is John Kelsey saying goodbye for now. Thank you for joining me in this session of Red Rhino Academy.